Hey everyone, I wanted to open up the floor and have another one of those discussion topics that I often have whenever there's a lot of varying opinions when it comes to one very specific topic. And this is actually going to be the very first open discussion topic that I have when it comes to Monster Hunter Stories 2. If you've been following my content, you know that I had a couple open discussion threads and videos regarding Monster Hunter Rise. But this one specifically, we're going to be talking about Stories 2 and the roadmap. Obviously, this is something that's created a little bit of a controversy, let's say, to be fair about it. And a lot of people are definitely spewing out hot takes here and there all over social media, which is something that, you know, is expected. And I think surprisingly enough, I think I've seen other content creators, Monster Hunter content creators, spew out some terrible hot takes as well. I'm not going to be sitting here calling out names or anything like that. That's not what I do. You know that's not what my content's about. But I do want to have an open discussion and encourage you guys to please leave a comment whether you agree, disagree, or whatever it is your take when it comes to the roadmap for Monster Hunter Stories 2, because let's be fair about it, there are a lot of criticisms being levied towards Capcom, fair or unjust as they may be, regarding the way that they're handling this, and specifically when it comes to direct contrast in the way that they handled Monster Hunter Rise's roadmap and the lack of clarity and perhaps even content that game ended up ultimately receiving up until the 3.0 update. And to be fair and for full context, we are presuming that all discussion when it comes to Monster Hunter Rise does revolve up until the 3.0 update, where All Mother Narwa was included. Anything beyond that, these event quests that we're getting every single week, or anything that we might presumably get with a 4.0 or even maybe a 5.0 update, we don't necessarily know anything about that. So we're not going to speculate here that you're still going to be supporting Monster Hunter Rise in the future. Duh, of course they should. We know that there's going to be a G rank update eventually, but that's not really what's going to be part of this discussion. So with all that table setting out of the way, first I want to basically just go over what we know is going to be part of the roadmap for Monster Hunter Stories 2, and then we can dissect things a little bit better. So obviously the Palamute update will be the very first thing that it gets about a week after launch. Kulvi Taroth is what I believe that monster is actually called. I never actually got to fight her in World. By then, I had dipped out of the game, so I didn't actually get to fight her. But this is the gold monster from Monster Hunter World, and she's going to be part of the August 5th update, which is like, I believe, not even like a month after the game actually launches. Alongside that update, they're also going to be getting Hellblade Gravelus and Bolt Reaver Astalos. And of course, in early September is another one of those big updates. Soulseer Mitsusune, Elder Frost Gammoth, Orochi Kirin. These are, you know, expected monsters that we kind of knew if we had been following the leaks. Surprising that they're going to be adding them as, you know, DLC, but it is what it is. And then within late September, Dread King Rathalos and Molten Tigrex, and then Kulvi Taroth is going to get a higher difficulty tier. The last update that they show up in this roadmap is going to be in October, when they give you a high difficulty quote-unquote quest exclusive monster. But they basically show off that it's this dragon flying on top of a mountain, and everyone basically knows that it's Fatalis. That's just gonna be what the October update for Monster Hunter Stories is gonna be. You don't need a leaker to tell you that. That's just common sense. And the other update that they will be receiving is Silver Rathalos and Gold Rathian as well. So that's pretty much the roadmap. An impressive roadmap for what essentially is a turn-based JRPG with a monster taming set of mechanics. And for full context, this does take place within the next 4 months, essentially after the July launch. So this is going to be a pretty robust set of updates that the game is going to be seeing. A 4-month window is pretty similar to what we saw with Monster Hunter Rise. It took about 3.5 months, I want to say 3 months, for us to get the 3.0 update that it was pretty much going to be the conclusion to the story of the game. So this is pretty much on par with what Monster Hunter Rise got when it comes to the length of it. The content size of it, I think it's less. I've seen a lot of terrible hot takes on social media where they're saying that Monster Hunter Stories 2 is getting more content post-launch than Monster Hunter Rise is, and that's just simply untrue. That is just mathematically wrong and inaccurate. Now the argument can be, of course, we've known and we've gone over this in the past, should the content that Monster Hunter Rise got, specifically All Mother Narwa, should that have been, you know, part of the full launch of the game? And the answer is yes, absolutely. But for some reason it wasn't. They decided to delay it, and you know, whether the pandemic has something to do with it or whatever the case may be, they decided to add more, you know, apexes and stuff like that for filler and round it out. That was the situation that we were dealt with. But ultimately, Monster Hunter Rise did get more content within the first 4 months that Monster Hunter Stories will be getting within the first 4 months. That's just kind of like a pretty open and shut case. Now, my situation here with this roadmap is that they are pretty clear as to what you are going to get and when you are going to get it, which is extremely cool for the way that they're handling this. I'm glad that Capcom realized that they screwed up when it comes to Monster Hunter Rise, where they kept us in the dark, essentially telling us like, hey, you will be getting a conclusion to the story at some point. They didn't necessarily even tell us that it was going to be the 3.0 update at first. They made it clear after the 2.0 update, but in the beginning, they weren't very transparent as to what that 3.0 update was going to be or when we were going to get the ending of the story. On top of that, like we see with this roadmap in Monster Hunter Stories 2, every monster that they're adding, and whether it is balances, updates, and changes to quests and gears and stuff like that, that they're most likely going to end up balancing out, they're only focusing on monsters in this roadmap that they're showing. Nothing else. Where in Monster Hunter Rise, they were just telling us like, hey, you're going to get quests and maybe you're going to get armors. But they weren't like actually telling us the monsters. This is why it became a very like dramatic situation for some content creators when they were basically releasing secret monsters in an update, and content creators were asking for other content creators to not actually talk about the secret monster, quote unquote, in the update because they didn't want to be spoiled or they didn't want other people to be spoiled. It's like, that's ridiculous. That's not realistic. Whereas like here with the roadmap of Monster Hunter Stories 2, there's no secret. We know what's coming, we know what's going to be there, and we know when it's coming. We don't have a specific date for September and October, but like it's pretty clear that early September gets updates, late September gets updates, and available in October, we're going to get another update. So everything else other than that is already dated in July and in August. It's pretty cut and clear that they learned from Monster Hunter Rise. They knew to make it a very clear roadmap telling us specifically the monsters, which is the thing that people really care about. Hey, this is when you're going to get it. This is when you should expect it. And that level of clarity is something that I wish we would have gotten with Monster Hunter Rise. That's really my biggest criticism towards this roadmap situation at all. I don't really have any real issues with the way that they're handling Monster Hunter Stories 2. If you've been watching my content, you know that I've been telling you guys, Capcom has been marketing this game non-stop. They've been very open in developer interviews talking about how they're going to keep making this game as readily available as possible because they want people to be able to pick it up. They see this Monster Hunter Stories 2 game probably to be the Monster Hunter world for them. And I hope I explain myself clearly here because I don't want people to misconstrue me like thinking that I'm saying that Monster Hunter Stories 2 is going to sell as much as Monster Hunter World did. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we know that Monster Hunter World was like a pretty much the explosion of Monster Hunter worldwide. It was the reason why Rise was so like expected and hyped. Yes, it was on Switch, one of the most popular consoles in the market, but it was like off of the tail of Monster Hunter World, which was like beloved for whatever, you know, hot takes or disagreements you might have with the game, which I had plenty of. You know, it was like the reason why a lot of people got to notice the franchise for the very first time. And they're hoping that Stories 2 will be that, but for the RPG segment of the audiences, where Monster Hunter Stories 1 wasn't like a big thing. It was just a average RPG at best, and it was on a 3DS. Well, like this one, it's like they're putting it on PC, they're putting it on Switch, they're trying to make it as available as possible other than putting it on PlayStation and Xbox, and hoping that people check it out off of the back of Rise, off of the back of World, and they're hoping that this one is gonna be like the next big thing for them. Again, maybe not to the level of Monster Hunter World, but they definitely want it to be as big as possible. So I don't fault them for that. They've been very transparent about it, so people need to just kind of get over that situation. So when I bring up like the terrible hot takes that other people have had on social media, I'm not necessarily like trying to justify them or anything like that, but it is interesting that so many other people seem to have those same ideas and those same sentiments when it comes to just how this game is being treated and the way that they're handling it. And I hope people can realize that ultimately at the end of the day, this game will be, you know, judged on its own. It's not really going to be comparable to Monster Hunter Rise because they're two completely separate experiences. And this is its very own thing. Ultimately, it's not competing with Rise, it's not competing with World, it's not even in the same realm, and it's its very own thing, and it very much lives off of the back of what Monster Hunter Rise did. That's just like, let's keep that in perspective. Hopefully people realize that yes, the roadmap is interesting. I wish some of these monsters were a Monster Hunter Rise. That's just the reality of the situation. Specifically Fatalis, that's like one of those like Why isn't that dude in Rise? Like, that would be great to see that. Kobe Taroth would be an interesting one to see. I don't necessarily know how it would work mechanically, since I do know that fight is very focused on like movement and stuff like that in a very type of specific map, so I don't know how that would work. But other than that, like stuff like Silver Rathalos and Gold Rathian, like those monsters better be in like the G rank update. You know what I'm saying? Like, that should be expected. Hopefully you guys do feel compelled enough to leave a comment. I do want to hear your opinions on this. Hopefully they're more level-headed than what we've seen again on social media. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.